Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. At AM 630. WMAL.
637 on WMAL. Neiman and Wilson with you. We're talking about the events in Libya, the events in Cairo, and the political fallout, and it has now creeped into the campaign for sure. Pleased to be joined now by Eli Lake, senior national security reporter for Newsweek and the Daily Beast. All right, Eli, so many questions to get to, but let's start off with the attacks, the one at the embassy in Cairo and the one in Benghazi. Does it seem to you from people you've talked to that they were different and that the one in Cairo seemed to be a legitimate protest over this video, but the one in Benghazi seemed to be a coordinated attack and had nothing to do with the video?
Well, it's different in that respect, but it's also different in the sense that in Libya you had an attack where the new government of Libya, who was an ally, did what they could to try to help save Americans, and there were, I think, Libyans who died. And in Egypt, a country that had been a traditional ally of the United States since the Camp David Accord in 1979, you had a government that would not fulfill its basic obligations under the Treaty of Westphalia and provide security for an embassy, let alone the embassy of a superpower. And now you have a situation where the government of Libya has, of course, condemned the attacks, obviously much more serious because of the casualties. But you have in Egypt the government and the leader of the government, the new president Mohamed Morsi, who everybody is trying to figure out who exactly is this guy. Mm-hmm. And not only will he not condemn the attack in his own country, he also is calling on the U.S. to prosecute and imprison the maker of this internet film on Mohammed.
All right, so we have this situation. You're right. Very different situations, both in Benghazi and in Cairo. But in Cairo, they seemed to know something was up, and they seemed to know that some protest was coming. And they were issuing statements that have, I think, you could fairly describe as statements of appeasement, maybe even statements of apology that were coming from embassy staff. We've just heard from an ambassador who said that at least comes from the ambassador level. Yet the Obama administration distanced themselves from it, and Mitt Romney is being widely criticized because he also criticized those statements. What do you know about those statements that came out?
Well, what we know now, the official story is that the deputy chief of mission approved the message from the embassy. And then there were tweets that were done by a very low-level embassy official as the attack was happening that in some ways may have been worse than the actual statement or sound worse than the actual statement. And then finally there's the issue of there were some tweets that were in Arabic, others that were in English, and the ones in Arabic, at least have been brought to my attention, sound even more apologetic and kind of appear to use the same language about offense to religion that you would hear from the Organization of the Islamic Conference. But I think that you're talking about something who's fairly low level there. And I, at least for now, would say that I could understand why the White House would not know or approve the language, you know what I'm saying, the connection between something that goes on in a particular embassy. Although this was a serious crisis, and you would think that on something like this there would be a kind of coordinated message.
All right, but hold on a second. When a statement comes out from the embassy, isn't it generally looked at as the statement of official U.S. policy and the Obama administration?
That's true, but I would also say that it doesn't necessarily mean that something that comes out from an embassy is approved by the White House or even further the president. Now, Romney said Obama administration in his initial comments on this. But nonetheless, the implication, I think that the way that the original statement came out, he was making it political, and I think that, I'm just trying to stick to the facts at that point.
Yeah, I get that, but a statement that comes out from the embassy that the president himself distanced himself from and then Mitt Romney criticizes. I don't understand why the president can walk away and say, oh, wait, that wasn't from us, that wasn't official, when in most cases a statement that is issued by the embassy is considered official. And there's no criticism of that. But on the other side of the equation, if Mitt Romney says, that seems apologetic and we shouldn't be apologizing for what we do around the world, then he's open to a fair bit of criticism by the press.
Well, it's pretty clear that there was a guidance about this particular film where you had, at some level, the State Department, more than just the embassy, condemning the particular video. And that opens us a whole other question, which is, of course, anybody, I think most people would personally condemn the video, but as Americans, do we think it's the role of our diplomats or our government to be almost kind of, to be condemning, everything that's out there, especially, and does this seem like we're providing kind of legitimacy to really these, I think, invented grievances of fanatics? It's understandable why a lot of Muslims would be offended by this, but it also seems that there was a sense that, on 9/11 they were going to find a pretext to have these kinds of rage fests.
Right. Finally, do you know what the communication was like in both Cairo and Benghazi from the consulates to the White House? I mean, was the White House being updated on this minute by minute, especially since they were storming, climbing the walls at about 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon our time?
Well, I don't know the answer to the specific communications on that, and that's going to be very difficult to kind of verify. But what I can say is that traditionally, the State Department in Foggy Bottom in Washington, D.C. would be the place where kind of all up-to-the-minute communications would go. And in a crisis like that, it's certainly someone in the National Security Council must have been kind of clued in or brought into those particular conversations.
All right. Eli Lake, Senior National Security Reporter for Newsweek, The Daily Beast. Great to have you on this morning. Thanks
Greatly
very much.
Appreciate it, Eli.
Thank you.
All right, we'll check traffic and weather.